Player movement has become more frequent in the AFL. Whether it's through requesting a trade or moving as a free agent, the opportunities for a new start are now available. A key factor for some in leaving is the need for success. Playing finals and ultimately getting deep in September is what many want to achieve. So what happens when it goes wrong and the wish to depart a club comes back full circle the next year and the team the player left wins the premiership? It's happened to some of the biggest names in our game and has led to iconic moments and tales of devastation. Here are some players who made a fatal mistake of leaving just before a premiership success. It was one of the more cheekier moments in AFL history. The 2014 Grand Final was sealed by a kiss through its leader and warrior in Luke Hodge. 12 months earlier, Hawthorn held off a tough Fremantle outfit, but the off-season dropped a mega bombshell. Rumours circulated that Lance Franklin would leave to the upstart Giants on a deal worth well over $1 million per season. The world didn't expect him to join their big brother.
To a club that was going to hopefully win more premierships, and GWS are going to be great, no doubt, but I can probably see that in probably 4 or 5 years' time they're going to be good, and I want success pretty much straight away, so that's the reason why I chose Sydney.
So Hawthorn let him walk and had to reset with a forward line missing a 26-year-old Franklin right in his prime. He had a shaky start for the Bloods, but improved throughout the season and ended up winning the Coleman, booting home 67 goals in 19 home and away season games. He polled an absurd 22 Brownlow votes, finishing equal second, and in the prior week's 2 finals matches, he kicked a combined 8 goals, including 5 in the preliminary final demolition against North Melbourne.
The centre bounce, remarkable. Hawthorn rolling the dice. Away we go.
It was the perfect occasion to see how Buddy would perform against the side he left just the year prior. He did do his part, kicking a grand final career-high 4 goals, but unlike 2 years ago, the Swans were devastated by Hawthorn from beginning to the end. He congratulated his old teammates and paid them respect, but inside surely would have been thinking, what if? The story for Hawthorn would repeat the next year, while Franklin missed finals due to an array of personal issues. The Hawks won 2 without Buddy, and although he did make 3 grand finals for the Swans, he came away without a medal on all 3 occasions. His time in Sydney led to his 1,000th goal, was an overall marketing success, and led to deep runs in finals most seasons. But if he had stayed at Hawthorn, he might have another premiership medal or 2. A player who did join an upstart team was Gary Ablett Jr. in the 2010 off-season. He was the same age as Franklin and at his pinnacle, but he left an all-time great Geelong team to join the Gold Coast Suns. The deal was reportedly worth $9 million for 5 years. The move was clearly motivated by financial security and made Ablett the sole star and captain of a new club. It was a tremendous challenge he had in front of him. It would have been made harder that first year as the Suns won just 3 games while the Cats won 19, finishing second on the ladder. Individually, he was rewarded with All-Australian captain, a best and fairest, while polling 23 Brownlow votes. But for the first time in 5 years, he was not featuring in finals. Geelong cruised to the grand final and pulled away late against Collingwood to reign supreme.
There it is! Beyond a shadow of a doubt, the Cats proved themselves as one of the greatest teams of the modern era. Premierships 07, 09 and now 2000.
Ablett literally carried the Suns on his back, winning another Brownlow in the process, but the team never made finals or showed significant improvement. From 2014 onwards, his body began to break down and the club as a whole followed, with some questioning Ablett's leadership at the struggling club. Between 2014 and 2017, he featured just 49 times, battling a shoulder issue that crippled him in his 30s. Geelong continued to press for another premiership, continuously being at the pointy end of the year, but they did fail to win another. Eventually, the pairing reunited in 2018, and in the 2020 Grand Final, Ablett once again badly injured his shoulder, representing the back half of his career. He battled on in a tough defeat and retired immediately. Ablett was a 5-time Players MVP, and if he had stayed at Geelong in his peak years, they may have been worthy challengers to the Hawthorn three-peat. Such was the ability that Ablett had. It didn't quite happen in the first year of these players departing, but the setup was there. Has a football club ever had more of a disastrous off-season that actually turned out to be one of the best than the Western Bulldogs at the end of 2014? The coach was sacked and the CEO was gone. 3 key senior members also abandoned the club at its weakest point. Ryan Griffin was an All-Australian and 2-time Best and Fairest winner. The 28-year-old decided to move to the GWS Giants and was a significant part of the trade to get in Tom Boyd. What made the move even more shocking was that Griffin captained the club in the 2014 season. Adam Cooney had struggled with injury from 2010 onwards, but he was still a Brownlow medalist. His 2013 season saw him average 25.5 disposals and a goal per game, but 2014 did see a drop-off. Still, he was experienced and when right was a dynamic player. But for pick 37, he went to Essendon to get a fresh start. Finally, Shaun Higgins, who was leading into playing his best football, left as a restricted free agent to North Melbourne. He was a great midfielder and half-forward who had polish others didn't. For compensation, the Bulldogs got pick 27. The perception was that the club was in turmoil and would be at the bottom for the foreseeable future.
Today the Western Bulldogs are pleased to announce the appointment of Luke Beveridge as senior coach. Before getting underway, I want to acknowledge the contribution of the selection.
Things can change quickly. The 3 players leaving thought they were heading to brighter futures, but they had just left a club full of new energy. The Bulldogs under Luke Beveridge won 14 games and finished 6th, losing to Adelaide in the elimination final. They were a huge surprise and were great to watch. 2016 saw them go on a magical run all the way to the top with a mix of tough veterans and young players. What a 2-year journey it was. Griffin played 55 games for the Giants and was a solid contributor. He actually played in the famous 2016 preliminary final loss against the Bulldogs. In an article published in 2017, Griffin admitted he thought about the what if, but stated he was still happy with his decision. Cooney's career faded at the Bombers as he played 31 games. His last season was in 2016 and he posted pretty good numbers of 23 disposals per game and 6 goals. He was reliable for Essendon when a number of their players were banned for the year. Individually, Higgins achieved the most, playing his best football away from the kennel. He won 2 Best and Fairest at North Melbourne while becoming an All-Australian. He finished up his career at Geelong. It was a massive turnaround in just 2 seasons, and perhaps the departure of these 3 senior players opened the pathway up for future stars in Bonampelli, McRae, Dunkley and others. The most heartbreaking of these stories might be Brett Delidio's. Similar to the Bulldogs, the 2016 off-season for Richmond was tense. The now well-known review was deciding Damien Hardwick and his assistant's fate while trying to refuel a big club that was struggling on the field. In hindsight, it was a 50-50 call for Delidio, who had given his all for the Tigers. He had become a dual All-Australian and was incredibly versatile, but injuries struck in his last few seasons at Punt Road. In the last hour of the trade period, Delidio made the choice and agreed to be traded to the GWS Giants, with the Tigers getting a future 1st and 3rd round pick. 243 games he played in the yellow and black. He battled a calf injury in his first year at the Giants and debuted for them in round 20, playing every game up until the preliminary final against his old side. The Giants were outclassed and Delidio hunched over in sadness. He couldn't even watch the following week.
We went to the park to take Miller up on a scooter or whatever else, and I said, I'll shoot some hoops, and this bloke's got it going in his pocket, can you believe? He's running around beside me, he's got it in his pocket. I didn't say anything to him, I was just like, I'm trying to avoid this. I said, okay, all right, let's go. And I remember checking my phone, thinking, oh, well, I must be nearly over here. And I thought Richmond had won, and I had almost convinced myself that it wasn't fair. It was too unfair for it to happen, for them to win without me, you know, after everything that I'd gone and done. And for it to be the year later, I was like, that can't possibly happen, you know, like that's just... But I remember it just broke my heart.
The Tigers went on to win 2 more flags, while Deledio finished up in 2019 playing 32 games for the Giants. There are countless more players who have experienced a similar outcome after leaving. It's the chance players take to try and find success. Sometimes it is right around them, but they just can't see it. In the AFL, change can happen quickly, and clubs who seemingly have dire situations can make adjustments to win even when star players depart for a new beginning.